Hi and welcome to Board Game Opinions. I'm Mark Windle.
And I'm Jonathan Hicks.
And in this episode we're taking an in-depth look at Too Many Bones. So, Jonathan, you kickstarted it. Why'd you do it?
Yes, I was already familiar with Chip Theory Games, the publishers, mainly because of their Hoplomachus series, which always looked really nice. Now, it's very difficult to get here in the UK though, and it's something I looked about buying a copy from the States and it was just too expensive, so it's one I never picked up. But one of the things that always stood out for me is they tend to use these poker chips, which are always very nice quality there. They feel, heavy in the hands, nice weight to them. And you have poker chips for the baddies that you're fighting and poker chips for the heroes. And their sort of trademark system they use is that you have these then red health chips that sit underneath them for the amount of health each of the heroes or baddies has. So you can see immediately when you look at the board how much health each of the characters has by how high the stack is, who's in danger, this hero's looking a bit weak here. So that system I'd always liked.
Oh, cool.
And then they started talking, Too Many Bones came on Kickstarter, using the same kind of system, but one thing that always really brings me into games is adventure. And although I like the tactical battle system in Hoplomachus, this game seemed to bring adventure to the table far more. And one of the things I really like about it is at the start of each round you draw one of these encounter cards, and usually on the back there's some kind of choice. There's two things you can pick from. In a lot of the time it involves some kind of battle, and you can pick a more difficult battle, but then the rewards are better.
Yeah, I really like that, as it adds that bit of narrative a break between each scenario. But I've never seen their games before, so obviously from the chip theory, they make it obvious that they deal with poker chip stuff, so that made sense to me, but I didn't realise that it was part of a bigger set of games that they keep as a standard. Did they move from some sort of poker chip originally and then at some point move into board games as much as...
I'm not sure what the first game was.
Yeah.
Hoplomachus was certainly the first game that really stood out. But yeah, I love these adventure cards, it's great. And the fact that you can make different choices, and there are some things that we always like to do the same, don't we? Training points, which is the way you level up. We always seem to really like the training points. So if it's the choice between treasure, there's different kinds of loot in the game, or leveling up your character, we usually try and level up.
Yeah. But yeah.
So the quality of the components I knew was going to be great. And couple that with the adventure and the nice sort of tactical battle system, really that whole package was what sold it for me on Kickstarter.
Now, one thing I've noticed, this is it's original theme. I've not seen, they look like goblin-y sort of things. I know they've got the whole thing's original. How do you think they've done well with it? Do you like this they've done their own style?
In terms of the theming of the game, it is a fantasy adventure, like other fantasy adventures in some ways, but they've created this own race of gearlocks, I think they're called, which is, you say, are sort of half goblin, half elf things. Yeah. But there's a lot of storyline. So if you pick a character, so I was playing Pickett here, for example, who's like a tank sort of character. There's a chunk of storyline about Pickett. It tells you what he's like, as well as a sort of reference sheet that talks about the different skills and things. There is quite a lot of different character, if you like, that's added to each of them. Of the different characters you can play.
Is there an overriding story with it? Because I've not looked into the rulebook, I've just played the game, but...
So yes, there is. I must admit I've not spent too much time reading into it, but there certainly is story elements in the book. The idea is, I think, that typically these gearlocks have kept themselves to themselves, really, but as dangers are growing in the land, they need to get out there and help fight off the bad guys. But they do feel, as a fantasy race, quite individual. When you sort of take all the various story elements together, they don't feel like any other fantasy race I've come across before.
There's a certain amount of charisma and comedy involved in the way everything's written. Yes. But not overblown. It's not to the point that it's too much. It's just they're obviously just a bit sassy, I think's the word to put, as they say. They've got that kind of charisma that goes with every character when you read through the narrative and stuff. And do you think the general quality of writing is pretty good? As you say, in the scenario cards, etc.?
Yes, I do. There's plenty of variation in the types of story encounters that you're getting. It's not always battles. There are other things that you can do. And yeah, it's well written. As you say, there's little elements of comedy, but broadly speaking, it's serious. And I really like it. Yeah, I think it's very well done.
So I mean, the main thing that sets this apart, or one from my playing, is the variation on characters. How have you found that with just the wide range of different? I mean, you can see all these up here, and we've got the two in front of us.
That's right. The base game comes with 4 different characters, and then you can buy extra characters as kind of expansion packs. And when I kickstarted it, I just sort of got everything. So there are 7 different playable characters that we've got here, and each one of them does feel massively different. It's hard to explain just how different they are. Pickett, this character here, for example, is a typical tank in many ways. We should perhaps explain that you are getting dice is how you kind of level up your character. So he has quite a few dice, like this one that's providing extra defense shields, so you can roll those when you're fighting to help him take hits. But Tink, Mark's character here, is like an engineer who has these bots. You have like a spider bot or something, don't
that
you?
You can control.
That's right, and actually goes on as an extra, like a pet character almost, that moves around on the board here, and he's just completely different. The kind of dice that he's rolling when he's rolling are completely different. Like the different symbols on the faces are completely different. And I would say for each of the 7 different characters, they all feel very different. There are no 2 characters that are even close to each other.
Yeah, I love Boomer, who goes around creating and throwing bombs. And part of the way it works is you need to craft the bombs. So it's not just a case of this character has some grenades as they're attacked. You physically have to, while doing stuff, collect the components to build the bombs. So there's just so much. The things you need to think about in every turn is different for every player. It's not just a case of, well, my attack's different to your attacks, to you can send around a guy. Everybody has to think a different way, which helps with people not taking too much control, I think.
Absolutely, I was going to say that. It is a cooperative game, but one character gives you a tremendous amount to think about. So they give you a reference sheet for each character, as well as a bit of backstory here. For all the different symbols on all of this character's dice, it tells you what all the different symbols do. And so the only one slight criticism, if you like, is that when you first start playing the game, it's going to take you a long time to get your head around it. The learning curve on this is really steep. But I personally really enjoyed it. You know, sitting there going, oh, I can do this, and oh, wow, I can do that as well.
Yeah.
And you're looking at all the various different things you can do. The first time we played it, we probably sat down for 15 minutes, none of us really saying anything, just reading about all the various different things you could do. So there is a lot to take on at first. But yeah, they play so differently.
And I think for me, the biggest strength is the leveling system. And the way it works is because it's so unique to anything I've seen in a leveling system. Obviously, we have the dice, and I mean, do you want to explain, or do you want me to go with it? The fact that you're gaining other dice?
Yeah, so when you level up, you've got various different options. You get a training point, and you can spend it to improve one of your basic stats, so the amount of health or attack or defense you've got. And they have these they use the dice as counters as well. You're not just rolling these, so these dice never get rolled. And you just rotate it one to the side, and each time it counts up. And that works very well. Or you can spend a point to get skills, and then you have a whole pile of these skill dice for your character. But there's like a little tech tree almost. You probably can't see, but there are arrows on the nice neoprene mats here that you get. So in order to get this die, I had to first of all get this one. You can't get the next one until you got the first one. So I get this one, and it then unlocks these other 2 spots. And so I can choose, well, maybe I can get this one now. But there are various different places you could start. So instead of doing that, I could maybe start at this side over here, and you can get different routes through. And because of the scenario is going to be, I can't remember exactly, but sort of 10 to 15 days or rounds, if you like, in total for the game. And there's no way that you can fill up all of your skill dice here. Absolutely no way. If you didn't do any of these and just did nothing but skill dice, maybe you'd get half of them.
Yeah.
But even that would be pushing it. So replayability is great because you can take a different route through each time.
And that even doesn't include all the different
That's right. That's just for one character.
Yeah. So I mean, we've covered the characters themselves, but also on the other side, the enemies. They also are quite varied. How do you find them?
That's right. You get a nice selection of different types of enemies. You got your typical goblins and orcs as flying eagle type enemies, and you get a surprising amount of information on these little poker chips, because that's all you get told about a particular enemy. So it's got health and attack and things like this. But one of the interesting things is each enemy often has a number of keywords. So this particular enemy here, the owl bear, has an inspire keyword and a terrify keyword. And there's a big sheet, a reference sheet here, which lists all the different keywords. So although two enemies might have a similar attack and health value, those keywords make a massive amount of difference. So this one has lashback, for instance. Every time you hit it, you get hit if it's a melee attack, so you want to hit that one with ranged. The terrify thing means after you've been attacked, your character kind of gets stunned for a round. So they do change what happens in the battle hugely.
Yeah, man. The nastiest one I've found so far when we've played, the ones that like start locking your dice when you attack it. So you're really having to be tactical with regard to doing it. And then there's ones that, I mean, you can only do 1 point of damage, however much you do. So your big strong fighter is relatively useless against them because he's no better than the smallest one. But yeah, there's such a huge variation. I think it keeps you on your toes all the time and you have to plan. I mean, going into that, obviously the tactical battles are a big part of this game. How do you find the tactical battles? How do they work? Do they work well for you?
When I first saw a playthrough of this, Ricky Royal does a great playthrough if you want to watch a playthrough of this. And I was not sure whether or not this would be that interesting. It looks very abstract and a bit dull, to be honest. It's just a 4x4 grid, and when you move, you kind of move to different spots, and then you roll your dice to attack. There is loads more going on here than it appears.
Yeah.
There really is tons of tactics and strategy. You need to think further ahead in the battle in terms of what kind of baddies are going to be coming out as you go through the battle, because there's never more than 4 baddies on the map, but if you kill one, a new one's going to come on from a stack. And so you have to factor in what's going to come in. You usually get the tougher ones first, making sure your tank is in position to deal with the tough ones. There's an awful lot to think about. Positional play is very important.
Yeah.
It gets very congested very quickly. So if we want to hit this guy, for instance, you can only hit him either in this position or, because he's got enemies either side, behind. You can't attack diagonally. So you find you might want to move out the way to let someone else get in. There's just a lot to think about.
From what I found, there's just so much cooperation. Some tactical battle games can be quite just, the thing you got to do straight away. You just go, you go and hit him, then you go and hit him, then you positional play, because of it goes with the initiative system and ordering, which we'll cover in just in a second. But everybody needs to work together all the time, because if you leave one person in the wrong place at the wrong time, they can be out. It is that brutal at times. I don't think I've played many tactical battle like cooperative like this that are just they're so head thinky. I like the head thinking, maybe a bit too much for some people, but because the difficulty level is pretty hard actually at times. I think
it is. It's one of those. It is very much a thinking, careful planning game. It's not
it's almost a puzzle within the game.
It is quite puzzly.
I guess it also had to be this abstract because you can do this 4 or 5 plus times over the game. So it can't go some massive spawning thing because you just won't complete the game. So it's got to be relatively abstract. But I do like the way the initiative system works around and the constant rolling.
Yeah, I think it's great. So initially, when you first set up the battle, the different baddies have different initiative numbers, and you roll your own initiative dice to see where you end up in the order. And then from then on, you kind of rotate around this order. So this one goes first, and this one, this one, this one, this one, and then you reset for round 2, and you go through them again. So you know the order that the different things are going to attack in every round. And again, that adds to the planning. It's like, we don't need to worry about this guy because he's going to go first and he's blocked in. Then you can move in position and hit him, and he won't be able to hit you this round because he's already had his turn. It's things like that you've got to think about.
Yeah, but all in all, I mean, it's certainly solid. It works well. It doesn't feel tacked on. I mean, it is certainly the focus of the game with that story, but it doesn't. They've done it in a way that doesn't take too long. If it went on like half an hour battle, it would drag the game. But it's short, but a very short, thinky puzzle.
Yeah, it is. You do really need to like that kind of thing. If you just want to chuck some dice and have a bit of fun, I don't think this is the game for you. There is just so much to think about. But if you like those tactical puzzles, as Mark was saying, there's an awful lot
that, which is important. Yes. Because I don't know what you've really got, because there's so much variation, and only you know your character by the point you get halfway through the game, because everybody's playing evolves. You might know at the start, but once you evolved, I can't tell you what to do because I don't really know what your abilities are. That's
right. It's great. No one can take over this game, I don't think.
Which is really important because I'm not a massive fan of like quarterbacking, as the US would say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, past that, do you have any other positives or negatives you want to add to it? Just things we haven't covered?
There's lots of... They've just put a lot of thought into a lot of little things. Mm-hmm. So, for example, certain kinds of treasure this trove loot, as it's called, needs to be unlocked. You've discovered a locked box and you need to spend some time lock picking. And there's like a mini game for lock picking. So you have these lock picking dice that you roll here, and then you're trying to get different symbols, and some of them let you re-roll the dice. And this is like a game in itself almost that's all been slipped into the rest of it. There's lots of things like this. The loot itself, which adds various special abilities and things. It can often be difficult to remember, oh yeah, I've got this extra ability, I can do this, because there is so much to think about. But there's lots of things that they've obviously put a lot of thought into. The whole package is tremendous value for money, I think, in terms of the amount of replayability you're going to get out of it. There's tons and tons of
it feels very rounded. I don't feel like anything's been looked at any less. I don't feel any rough edges, as you'd say. It's all been well done. It's all been thought as one complete package, as opposed to, and here's some bit, and here's some bit, and they kind of don't mesh well, but everything does, because like I said, we get with the game, the loot works so obviously you need to use that within the battles. It all just meshes really well.
I was going to say, I've played all the characters now, and I don't feel like any of the characters is a weak character particularly. Some of them definitely work better in groups rather than solo, and rather helpfully actually, they tell you on the top of each character how difficult they are to play generally, or how easy or difficult they are in a solo game. It's the kind of game that would work very well solo actually. My son's played it quite a bit solo, he really likes this one. But
yes. That's one, your son's fairly young, and yet we've given time to be able to pick this up. It's not, the learning curve isn't super high, it's just time rather than complexity. Yeah,
that's right. It's about learning the character, learning what the different dice do, learning how to play them. But the actual, in terms of the thinking through the tactics here is difficult, but then a lot of it just comes down to, okay, I'm going to try this ability this time and you roll this one, so no, it's great.
Talking about rolling, I don't actually find that the dice, I mean, it's a rolling game, but it's not like rolling a d6 or whatever. It's not unbalanced. Generally, you can roughly predict where you're going to get.
Yeah.
There will be a few extreme results, but you don't feel... I've never felt hard done by the dice.
No,
which is
right.
important.
And one of the things that really helps with that, if you take this typical attack dice, is that every dice has this bones on it, which is a miss. And when you roll bones, you can be like, oh, I didn't get what I needed to. And in most games, you've missed, and that's it. You just feel annoyed, if you like, with miss. But with this one, every bones you get, you sort of lock it into whichever dice you've rolled, this backup plan, as they're called, and that unlocks extra abilities that you can use during the battle. So it might allow you to do extra attack, or it might allow you to heal, or each character has a completely different backup plan again. And that is a really nice bit of compensation, if like, they've given you for missing. So missing doesn't feel that bad.
But with sometimes I found that having those available at the right time is actually as important as having the ability.
Oh yeah.
A quick going, I can do this, and I know I can do this guaranteed, is actually really handy.
Yeah. There's been a couple of moments when they've swung the battle for us. It's been very tight. Someone's had just the right backup plan ability when they needed it, and it was great. Saves the day.
So, I mean, there is a lot to this and a lot of dice. So the one thing I'd say is it did come with a reasonable price point. How did you find with that?
Yes, there's no denying it. This is an expensive game. And you can see why. The dice, these are not stickers on the dice. They've been printed on, and the quality of the printing is excellent. They're really high quality dice. Thick neoprene mats. The dice slot in really well to these. They don't move around, which is great. The chips, all the hero chips and the baddie chips are all, I mean, Chip Theory games, that's what they specialise in. They do it really well. These are the best quality chips I've seen in any game ever. So it's even the reference sheets, they call them some kind of indestructible paper or something. They feel, it's not card, it's almost like plastic. It's been coated in something. They don't rip, you could spill something on it, it would just wipe off fine. These are just really good quality as well. Everything in the game is top quality.
Well, noticing when you're talking about that, they've actually got a smoother side and rough side. I guess the idea of the rough side is that it keeps it in place so it doesn't get knocked around. So they've even given you two sides so that you have one side to little things.
It is expensive, but you're getting the value for money. So as long as you're able to afford it, don't feel like, you know, is it really going to be worth it? It's worth it. It's really
content-wise, you will get, if you like the game, which I believe you will do. If you can usually tell if you like this sort of game, you will get the hours out of the game. You've just got to have the upfront cost sadly to get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I guess my only other real negative I'd have to is that it can be quite a long game at times because you go through so much, and I guess occasionally you can be thinking quite a lot on this map which can have a bit of downtime, but it's a thinky game, and so you're gonna know again if that's gonna be a problem for you. Sometimes you just need to think about things, and that's how important the game is. It's not easy. And
you should be prepared for that, really. If you're doing this short scenario, maybe say that's 2 players, and you both know what you're doing, you could perhaps do the game in a couple of hours. But honestly, with 4 players, particularly if you're new to the game, you could easily take 4 or 5 hours to play this. Now, when we first did that, the time flew by. I have to say.
It's not like I noticed that I was playing for that long, don't get me wrong.
But just be aware, it is a long game. It is going to take a good chunk of time, and it takes a lot of table space as well. Just be aware of that, particularly with 4 players. And it's not one of those games that's easy to pack up either. You really need to leave it out. If you can't sit down and play for 4 hours at a time, you're going to need to leave it out and come back to it, because there's
no save ability in this. It's
not
one or the other. So, I think we know the answer to this, but will you keep it?
Absolutely. This is one of the best games I've played in years, honestly years. And in terms of my rating, I would be on a solid 9 out of 10. I think I said this when we did the overview video, but the only thing that's really holding it back personally from being a 10 out of 10 rating for me is the number of adventure cards is a little bit limited. So we do tend to see the same ones cropping up again. And also just variety in terms of having a campaign system, for example. It feels a bit like haphazard adventures. But as I think Chip Theory Games is working on a campaign mode and expanded cards here. So if that's something you definitely want from the game, it's coming. So I'm absolutely going to be keeping this. And if they maintain the same standards with any kind of campaign, extra adventure system expansions that they add, it would definitely take it to a 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I think I gave it an 8 in the review we did originally of this, and I'm going to move it up to 8.5 after playing it again since then, just because I enjoyed it so much the second time round. Like I said, I still think there was a little bit of downtime and it can go a little bit long, but I think it is worth that type of investment, because as you say, you don't really notice the time going when you're playing it.
Oh yeah, it's like one of those computer games. You start playing the game and 3 hours go by. It's like, what happens to
Civilizations
the time?
every time.
Yeah.
I'm just staying around for 15 minutes and then
it's totally like that. It absorbs you. The game really absorbs you so well.
Okay, well that's been Too Many Bones, and I've been Mark Windle.
I've been Jonathan Hicks.
Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye all.
Bye.